I come before you today to analyze a long-asked question, a quandary often posed but with no real answer. Until today. Is Arthur Dayne a bum? So I thought this would be easier with a visual element, and I wanted to fulfill my gender envy of those male YouTubers that just talk with their microphone in front of a green screen. So here we go. Sir Arthur Dayne was known as one of the greatest knights of the age, heralded for his strength, battle prowess, and bravery. But is this deserved? So let's go over his wins. Yeah. So let's go over his losses. First off, he loses against Howland fucking Reed when he's a teenager. And I know this dude has the Valyrian shotgun, but come on. For tourneys, he only ever defeats Rhaegar in one tourney when Viserys is born, and then he loses to Rhaegar in every tourney afterwards, and Rhaegar is known as the guy he doesn't really fight. In terms of his battle prowess and battles that he's won, he only really has the Smiling Knight. So really Barristan kind of has him beat there. And George even talked about saying that if him and Barristan fought, Arthur would only win if he had his overpowered sword. So what the fuck is up with that? So why is this guy seen as the best? Why would George sing his praises so much? And I know what you're thinking. Holly, why is there still so much of the video left? And why is the title about haunting the narrative? Well, dear viewer, the answer is because it's a story. That's the whole reason. Arthur Dayne serves as a background piece in other characters' stories. He's not a fully fleshed out character. Okay, cut the green screen. It's analysis time. All right, that's better. The concept of haunting the narrative is one that isn't new. It's a common trope utilized in media, from Laura Palmer in Twin Peaks, or Rose Quartz in Steven Universe, or even Catherine literally haunting Heathcliff in Wuthering Heights. The idea, as I understand it, is that a character who has died before the events of the story is still relevant in the ongoing plot, and that their absence is felt and affects the story. A Song of Ice and Fire is a story that is haunted by the ghosts of its history. Our main timeline takes place after two major wars, the War of the Ninepenny King and Robert's Rebellion. Both of these wars resulted in high casualties that affect the story to this day. Song of Ice and Fire is also known for killing off notable characters, so these characters, even though they didn't die before the story, I would say still haunt the narrative as the characters that have survived go through, i.e. Catelyn, Ned, Robb, who all of the Starks still think about quite often. I mean, we receive countless quotes of the siblings thinking about how they need to be strong like Robb, or thinking about what Catelyn would do, or thinking about what Ned would think. They are constantly on their minds. But what about characters like Arthur Dayne, who die before the story begins? Or Ashara, his sister, or Lyanna, or Elia, or Rhaegar, or Aerys, or the countless characters in the background. We hear about them and their feats and their mistakes and what led to their deaths. We also get a lot of infighting. People picking apart their feats, their decisions, their outcomes in life. Why did Rhaegar cheat on his wife? Why did Lyanna run away? Is Ashara Jon's mom? How did Arthur Dayne die so unceremoniously? And the answer is because it's a story. Sometimes a character has to make the wrong choice to push the story along. We see this time and time again in Ned's POV. He makes the wrong choices that have us as the reader yelling at the page because we have more knowledge than him. It's a literary term called dramatic irony that creates this pit in your stomach. That moment when you know it's all going to go wrong and there's nothing you can do about it. It creates a lot of delicious tension that I found a lot of modern readers reject. But it's these tragic ends, these mistakes, these fuck-ups that make for such a compelling story. So if these characters just exist to make mistakes or die or push the plot along, then should we just not care about them? Is dedicating time and effort to them useless and pointless? Well, no. These characters do matter, and the beauty of them is that we see them through the lenses of those who love them or hate them the most. Let's go back to Arthur Dayne. What is his purpose in the story? In my last video, I talked a lot about knighthood and its status in the world, and specifically Jaime's relationship to it. Jaime, before becoming disillusioned, was enamored with the concept of knighthood and valor, specifically through Arthur Dayne, who knighted him himself. He was someone who Jaime looked up to and is still his moral compass of what a knight should be. When he looks at the poor state of the Kingsguard, he thinks of Arthur Dayne, of how far knighthood has fallen. Arthur Dayne, despite not having a grand list of accomplishments and dying in kind of a lame way, exists to be a pedestal for what knights should aspire to be this morning of the dawn, to be this shining light of knighthood. And Jaime sorely misses this time of knighthood, where things felt clear-cut and easy. Arthur also serves as a part of Ned's guilt. Ned is a character that I love, not because he's noble or like the best guy ever, but because he is a man that is haunted by the ghosts of his past. He is a soldier who never left the war. His POV chapters are filled with him thinking that it never should have been him. Why should he lead Winterfell while his sister and brother lay dead? Why should he live and not a great legend like Arthur Dayne? Why should Robert be on the throne and not Rhaegar? Did he make the right choice in his role that led to the death of Rhaegar? Will he ever move on from the horror of the death of Elia and her children from his side? Ned is a man who walks through the memories of his past to the point that it gets him killed. Ned sees the man that his best friend has become and remembers the apathy he showed towards Elia and her children, and fears that he would do the same to Cersei, Joffrey, Tommen, and Myrcella. And so he warns Cersei because he can't be complicit in another murder like that, and he gets killed for it. Lyanna's final words for Ned are repeated over and over and over again throughout his POV chapter. They are the words that lead him to hide Jon as a bastard and stain his reputation and his marriage with Catelyn before it even really began. Lyanna's actions and choices haunt the narrative as a whole. Arya is allowed more liberties at Winterfell because of how she reminds Ned of Lyanna. Cersei still harbors this resentment and jealousy towards her after all these years. Robert waxes of the life that he should have had with Lyanna. Jon thinks of his mother and what she would be like, not even knowing that it's Lyanna. Her choice to free herself from her engagement to Robert and run away completely altered the course of everyone's lives. Westeros was already a powder keg, to be sure, and I don't think her action of running away was what really tipped off the war, but her decision to choose a life for herself definitely was something that started it all. I plan to speak more in another video about this because I love Lyanna as a character, and I think people often misunderstand her. I don't think she ever ran away to be with Rhaegar. That doesn't really feel in character for me. But that's another video coming soon. And speaking of Rhaegar, oh boy, he does haunt that narrative. Robert even says how he dreams of killing him every single night. Jaime thinks about their last conversations with each other and what could have been. Cersei thinks about how her life could have been different if Aerys had agreed to their engagement. Jon Con thinks about him constantly and this love that he still harbors for him. Ned thinks about how Rhaegar would have been a better king, and Daenerys thinks of Rhaegar as she decides what kind of leader she wishes to be. Viserys and Rhaegar serve as moral compasses for her as she goes throughout her story. The cruel brother she knew all too well, and the brother she never got to have. Rhaegar even appears to her in her visions in the House of the Undying, when he talks about the prince who was promised prophecy, looking directly at her. I have so many thoughts on the House of the Undying. Specifically that scene, and also when he says that, the dragon must have 3 heads. I might do a whole video on the House of the Undying and just unpacking all of that. I know everyone's already done that, but I want to do it, okay? When Daenerys contemplates what she should do in Astapor with the Unsullied, both Jorah and Barristan talk to her about Rhaegar and what Rhaegar would have done. Barristan definitely speaking more highly of him, and Jorah, commenting about how he died. Thanks, Jorah. But Rhaegar is a constant what if in Daenerys' life. And it is his mistakes and decisions that are the reason that Daenerys brought dragons back into the world. Rhaegar needed to fuck up for Daenerys to complete the Azor Ahai prophecy. It's one of the reasons that I find discourse around, like, oh, why did he do X, Y, and Z kind of frustrating when discussing Rhaegar, because, like, it's not about him. Rhaegar's flaws, fuck-ups, and mistakes serve to propel Daenerys' plot forward, and also Jon's by extension of him being his father. It is important to view these characters in reference to their modern-day counterparts and what they do to color the story. I think Ashara Dayne is a great example of this. Ashara Dayne serves as a red herring for Jon's mother, a tragedy of war, and a lost connection for Barristan. There is probably not some greater mystery to her, despite what the fandom wants, but she exists as this floating question mark in the story. Ned and Catelyn have to contend with the rumors of her being Jon's mother. Ned also has to deal with the guilt that his hand in killing her brother ultimately might have led to her death. Barristan thinks of her and the affection that he held for her, the resentment he holds for whoever disrespected her honor as a noble lady. She also serves to add tension to Barristan's seemingly unwavering devotion to his vows as a knight. Sometimes these characters who die before the story serve as central motivators for present-day characters. Elia and her brothers are a great example of this. Elia's death caused great tragedy for her family, as well as Dorne at large. It also created a great divide between her brothers as Oberyn is pushed to action by this injustice, while Doran starts to scheme in the background. They both feel immense grief at the loss of their sister and her children, but they cannot reconcile with their different methods of dealing with this. Doran thinks Oberyn is too rash and sees how it gets him killed. Oberyn sees Doran as doing nothing, as letting this tragedy go unpunished, never knowing that Doran was trying to avenge her in his own way. This rift caused by the loss of Elia pushes the Dorne plot forward. Every move they make is spurred on by her absence. People often want to power scale who haunts the narrative most, but I frankly see no point in doing so. In a series with so many point of view characters, I am way more fascinated in how these dead characters propel our current characters forward, how their actions and their absences affect them. We can try to nitpick their actions and try to figure out their motivations from the little that we get, but I find a lot of these pursuits frustrating after a while, frankly, because the point of these characters is that they are unresolved. While we may get some answers, nothing will resolve the tragedy and pain that was caused. Lyanna and Rhaegar being revealed to be Jon's parents will be nice because he'll, learn that he was loved, but it won't take away the years he had without them or the years that he had to carry the stigma of being a bastard. This endless quest of vengeance that so many characters take up in the name of these dead characters only leads to more destruction and harm. I think Ellaria Sand puts it the best. Ellaria's cheeks were wet with tears, her dark eyes shining. Even weeping, she has a strength in her, the captain thought. Oberyn wanted vengeance for Elia. Now the three of you want vengeance for him. I have 4 daughters, I remind you. Your sisters. My Elia is 14, almost a woman. Obella is 12, on the brink of maidenhood. They worship you, as Doria and Loreza worship them. If you should die, must Elle and Obella seek vengeance for you, then Doria and Lori for them. Is that how it goes? Round and round forever? I ask again, where does it end? Ellaria Sand laid her hand on the mountain's head. I saw your father die. Here is his killer. Can I take a skull to bed with me? To comfort me in the night? Will it make me laugh, write me songs, care for me when I am old and sick? Lingering on them only leads to us being haunted by them. We see this playing out in the main story as Lady Stoneheart, who is literally haunting the story, as she trudges on as a revenant only set on revenge, for vengeance for Robb that will never ever bring him back, and just leaves a bloody path behind her. Her story is one that shows the consequence of endless revenge, and how it literally turns her heart to stone. To never rest until eventually someone who loves her will have to put her down. So, in conclusion, let us enjoy these characters, but also remember their purpose in the story. Although the Arthur Dayne slander is pretty funny. And hey, if you like this video, throw it a like, give me a comment, tell me what you liked, tell me what you didn't like. If you want to see more A Song of Ice and Fire analysis, please subscribe to the channel, as I am trying to put out videos every single week. And other than that, we'll see you next time.